Hi everyone, welcome to week 7. This week we're going to learn a new pronoun / adjective called the intensive, and you can see it there on the screen, ipse, ipsa, ipsum. Alright, so we're going to go over those forms and we're going to talk about self-words in English because that's how it's going to be translated. Alright, here are the forms. If you remember the relative pronoun, which is qui, qui, quod, cuius, cuius, cuius. If you remember the demonstrative pronouns, hic, hic, hoc, huius, 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 ele, ala, lud, ilius, ilius, ilius. Ipse, ipsa, ipsum follows a similar pattern in that it is one of those ius in the genitive, I in the dative pronouns. And what that means is that other than that genitive and dative singular, for the most part, and the relative pronoun is a bit of an exception, for the most part, these forms will follow the us, a, the 2-1-2 paradigm. And so you've got irregular genitives and datives, you've got that ius genitive and that I dative, but otherwise your endings are going to be pretty familiar. O, and then e, orm, is, os, is. And then I, arm, is, as, is, and then the neuter, of course. The same with the a for the neuter, nominative, and accusative plural. Okay, so a new word to learn, a new stem. Obviously the stem is ips, but the endings should be relatively familiar, so no real new endings. All right, and so as I said, the intensive is the self word in English. Myself, yourself, himself, herself, itself, ourselves, yourselves, themselves. The problem is that English, not Latin, English uses the self word for two very different things. All right, so the intensive, and this in Latin, let me just change colors. This in Latin is what we're learning this week. Ipse, ipsa, ipsum. Okay, and the reflexive, all right, in Latin is sui, sibi, say, say. All right, so you can see that it is English where the overlap occurs, not Latin. Latin uses two very different words. So how do we tell them apart when we're translating them? Well, one, you simply just have to know that the ipse, ipsa, ipsum is the intensive, and that sui, sibi, say, say, and there's some other reflexive forms, but we're not going to go through all of them today, is that reflexive. But over here on the left, some clues or some approaches to kind of check yourself. All right, so does the self word modify another word? So the president herself arrived first. You can see that herself goes with the president, intensifies the noun there, and does so by agreeing with it or modifying it. The reason it's called the intensive is that it obviously intensifies whatever it goes with, and it usually emphasizes that whatever word it's going with is more important, more notable, more something than otherwise. So in other words, in that sentence, that example sentence, it's not the president's secretary, it's not the vice president, it's the president herself, right, that is coming. And so that is intensifying the fact that it's the president herself that is coming. All right? So if it modifies another noun, then it is going to be the intensive. And again, this is a way for you to check that you're translating it correctly. That overlap can sometimes make you translate either the intensive or the reflexive as the opposite self word in English. Okay, for the reflexive, so does the self word reflect on / is the same as the subject of the sentence? The way the reflexive works is it reflects on the subject of the sentence. So for it to be reflexive, it, the pronoun, and the subject have to be the same person. All right, and obviously from this form sui, which is the reflexive, we get the word or the verb suicide, right? Suicide is obviously killing oneself, and you can see in it that reflexive nature. All right, so in the example here, he sees himself, himself, and he are the same person. That's what makes it reflexive. You can see, though, that he and himself are separated. Himself doesn't modify he. Himself refers to he. Those are different things. All right, whereas with the intensive, the self word modifies or agrees with the noun that it's going with. So just be careful when you're dealing with the intensive and the reflexive that you're translating it as the correct self word in English. As I said, that overlap in English can cause some confusion when translating. All right, so this is just an exercise in English to kind of test this intensive versus reflexive phenomenon. All right, so basically you're going to be identifying whether the self word is an intensive or a reflexive. All right, sometimes you'll have both. Sometimes you might not have any. All right, I'll do a couple for you, and then you can do the rest on your own. So number one, which to some extent we've already done, the president herself. Remember, the self word is modifying the noun, and so that's going to make it the intensive. All right, so skipping to number three, he turned and was astounded to see himself in the unexpected mirror. The mirror, of course, is a bit of a clue kind of thrown in there, but this is going to be the reflexive. And again, remember that he and himself are the same person. That is what makes it reflexive. All right. I'll do one more, and then I will leave you on your own. All right, so number five, I myself found myself doing the work instead of the rest of the group. So this myself, because it is agreeing with the I, is the intensive. All right, and this myself, because it is the same person as the I, is the reflexive. All right, so you can see them both at work. The other thing is that the intensive, ipse, ipsa, ipsum, a lot of people think it can only be third person, which is himself, herself, itself, themselves. But it can, though rarely, or certainly less commonly, be used for first and second person as well. So it would be ego ipse, I, myself. All right, it can function that way. And then finally, number six, I'll do one more actually. There is no self word, so of course you have neither an intensive nor a reflexive in number six. All right, so here's a little seal motto, right? Nice little easily digestible chunk that has an intensive in it. All right, so you can see the intensive ipsa there at the top. Sapientia ipsa libertas. All right, so sapientia is wisdom, libertas is freedom. So wisdom itself is freedom, right? You don't need to do anything with the wisdom. You don't need to sort of apply the wisdom. It's just wisdom that is freedom. So wisdom itself is freedom. All right, and that is the intensive in action. All right, this is a quote from a Latin poet, Juvenal. You can see his name down there, and that's the SAT is that it's from his satires. That's an abbreviation for satires. All right. So amor numi, love of money. All right, grows, crescit, cresco, crescere is to grow, and if you know the word crescendo, crescendo comes from cresco, crescere. Crescendo, of course, is something that grows or increases. All right, so love of money grows as much quantum, all right, as money itself grows. All right, so in other words, the more money you make, the more you love money. All right, so to focus on the intensive, love of money, amor numi, grows, crescit, as much as the money itself, right? Okay, so intensifying the money, there's your ipsa, grows. Crewit is suddenly perfect, so has grown, but kind of the same difference in terms of how English would express it. All right, here's an ancient text from Pliny. Pliny is to some extent famous for his letters. He wrote these literary epistles, meaning letters that were kind of almost meant as texts, or they were texts kind of written under the guise of letters. He's most famous for his letters recounting the eruption of Vesuvius. Pliny is our primary source for the eruption of Vesuvius. In any case, all right, here is our intensive. All right, Pliny is mock bragging, I'm reading the introduction above, to a friend about a successful hunt he went on, perhaps in a tone similar to the way, for example, one who's not good at golf or basketball might brag about a lucky shot. So in other words, Pliny is not a hunter, but he sort of went hunting and managed to do okay at it. So I'll just sort of go through, and you can read the translation here. You will laugh, and you're allowed to laugh. I, that guy that you know, hunted down 3 boars, and they were truly fine specimens. All right? You will say, you, ipse? Yes, I, ipse. All right? And this is a good illustration of how ipse can be not just the third person, that it doesn't have to be himself, herself, or itself. So you, yourself, all right, and then I, myself. Note that it is the same word in Latin, but English will change it based on the pronoun, right? So same word in Latin, But if we're second person you, of course it becomes yourself. And if it's first person I, it becomes myself. All right, here's another text from Catullus, who is a poet of the 1st century BC, kind of known for his romantic or poetry focused on his girlfriend. All right. There we go. All right, there's our ipse there. All right, so my woman, mulier mea, says that she prefers to marry no one but me, not even if Jupiter ipse comes after her. All right, so my woman, my girlfriend, says that she prefers to marry no one but me, not even if Jupiter ipse comes after her. All right, so Jupiter, of course, is the king of the gods, to some extent an equivalent to that president herself example that we were looking at. So not even if Jupiter himself, ipse, comes after her. All right. All right, one more text from Ovid, who's kind of famous for his mythological texts. This is from Daedalus and Icarus. You might know Icarus as the one who had the wings and flew too close to the sun, and so, of course, fell out of the sky because the wax of his wings, holding his wings together, melted. All right, so skipping the postquam just to get sort of into it. All right, the opifex, the craftsman. All right, and note that ipse here is nominative. So in poetry, the word order can be a little more convoluted, but ipse here agrees with opifex. All right, so the craftsman ipse balanced the two wings, the double wings, the twin wings. All right, well, really, it's balanced his body into the twin wings. You got to imagine the wings almost having like a harness, and so he's sort of putting his body into that harness. All right, and he hung in the air that the wings moved, the air that the wings kind of pushed. All right, and so down here you have some multiple choice. All right, the body itself. All right, the craftsman himself, the body itself, the craftsman himself, the body itself. So we're going to eliminate A, C, and E because, of course, ipse can't agree with corpus. Ipse has to agree with opifex because ipse is nominative. All right. And because we know Daedalus is a man, it's got to be D because of his own body, right? Her own body can't work unless we're dealing with a woman, which we are not. But the important thing here is the intensive, the craftsman himself, right? So Daedalus himself, the opifex himself. All right, let's take a look at this week's summatives. You have a paragraph to translate for the reading. You've got sort of plenty of vocab there. All right. We're getting back to some adverb absolute at the beginning. So with peace confirmed, all right, because of this situation, because of these things, his rebus. All right, die quarto, on the fourth day. All right, die quarto. All right, on the fourth day after venimus in Britanniam, after we came into Britain. All right, so 18 ships, which had carried the cavalry, equites. So 18 ships sailed from the port, from the harbor, all right, with a light wind. So with peace confirmed, all right, because of the situation, on the fourth day after we came into Britain, 18 ships, which had carried the cavalry, sailed from the harbor with a light wind. All right, so just a little way to get you started. All right, and then you can do the rest on your own. And for the writing, we're translating into Latin. All right, so this will really focus on the intensives. The world itself is large, so mundus is world. All right, magnus est, there's our is large, and of course the intensive goes in the blank. So remember, you need the nominative masculine singular because mundus is nominative masculine singular, and that of course is going to be ipse. So mundus ipse magnus est. All right, so that should about do it for this week. Email me if you have any questions. Thanks, and I'll be here next week.